Hey everybody, it's Ashley of Day-to-Day Social Work. I am a private online tutor and I specialize in assisting people to pass the license exam in social work on the master's and bachelor's level. You can find me online at Day-to-Day Social Work on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So I'm starting a little bit early tonight with my studying. I know I said I start from 8 to 10, but I was studying last night and I was taking notes, and so I wanted to come on and just share what I was studying with you all, because we're in this together now. We're doing this together. So I was looking over some questions, and I'm going to add these questions to the pre-recorded tutoring series. But I was looking over these questions, and one of the questions asked, it mentioned that a patient had a specific problem, I think like an eating disorder, and it asked about Freud, and if we were to look at the issue from Freud's perspective, what would the most likely answer be out of the four choices? And so it was an answer that most people probably wouldn't pick. And so I started looking into Freud, and I understood the rationale behind the answer. So I wanted to come on here and talk to y'all. So I'm cooking right now. So I just finished working. I worked a little bit late today, and I just wanted to go ahead and get this out the way while I'm cooking before I start studying for the night. But so what I want to look at here is Freud's psychoanalytic theory. So if you watched any of the previous videos on the channel that I made, and I was looking at some of the videos on the channel from 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it's so amazing to see the growth in my own self and what I actually know from back then until now. So even though the information back then was accurate, I have a lot more confidence in presenting it to you here again 5 years later, 4 years later, however many years later it's been since those previous videos. So these will be some repeat information, but it's a little bit more up to date with a little bit more confidence from me and with more experience from me. So as I've said before, psychoanalytic theory is going all the way back to your childhood and walking through your childhood basically and figuring out what things from your childhood have manifested into your adulthood. And so figuring out or analyzing your psyche from back then and things that happened back then to bring you to the present. So it may be confusing to some people, but once you start reading through psychoanalytic theory and Freud, it'll make more sense to you. So the psychoanalytic theory treats mental illness and explains human behavior. So it goes back into childhood and how your childhood, like I said, how your childhood has an impact and an influence on your adult life, which shapes your personality. So you may have heard me talk about before how my family expected perfection from me, and they expected me to be excellent and great, and I had to make all A's, and I couldn't make a B, and B's were not acceptable, and blah, 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 blah. And so now as an adult, I still hang on to some of that stuff, and I don't know exactly what causes the things that I unconsciously think about, and we're going to talk about the conscious in this video as well, but like things that were instilled in me as a child have manifested into my adulthood, not necessarily in a good way when I think about how I am as an adult and how I deal with certain things because of how I was raised. And it's in my unconscious. I don't even think about it. But when I started looking at Freud and the psychoanalytic theory, it started making sense to me because I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm doing this stuff unconsciously, but when I'm reading about it, it makes sense to me. So let's see. And I took notes last night. So it says a true account can't be given because we don't consciously think of reasons when we try to explain our behaviors to others or to ourselves. So a lot of people like me try to explain myself to other people, but I can't reasonably do that because a lot of the things that I do are in my unconscious from back when I was a child. And this is all psychoanalytic theory. So this is just the basis of things that you need to know for the exam, but also if you're going to be a therapist. And like I said, the content on this channel will go more towards clinical now as I continue to progress in my career and bring you along with me. We'll be looking at more clinical stuff, and this is more clinical. So when you think about your past and your childhood and you start to analyze it, it kind of makes sense, and it lines up with the psychoanalytic theory. But so when we try to explain our behaviors and ourselves to other people, sometimes we can't really do that because we don't have a good understanding of ourselves either, because of our unconscious. And hold on, let me check the food real quick. Okay, I'm back. So sometimes we might try to deceive other people by attempting to, I guess, cover up the things about ourselves that we don't want people to know. But in actuality, we end up deceiving ourselves because we don't really know our true selves, so to speak, because a lot of stuff is in our unconscious. So, and a lot of this stuff, when you start looking at your childhood and the psychoanalytic theory, you start to find out that a lot of times you may be neurotic. And so neurotic is when you have like a response, like an emotional response to like things, and it deals with your anxiety and how if for some reason somebody yells at me and they don't really mean it in a negative way, that's just how they express their emotions. Or you know how people get excited sometimes when they're talking and they are very passionate about the things that they talk about. That could trigger me to have a neurotic response, an emotional response, and it might make me feel like they are attacking me or threatening me or something like that. So I'm going to talk about the conscious and the subconscious and the unconscious. So, and this is where you see those little pictures of like the iceberg, and you have the conscious at the top, and then you have the subconscious in the middle, and then deep, deep down under you have the unconscious. And so if you are a visual learner, and it's really good to know what type of learner you are, it's good to look at that little picture of the iceberg. So the conscious is at the top. The conscious is that small amount of mental activity that you know about, that you're able to pull from. So your thoughts, your perspectives and perceptions, your regular day-to-day conversations, that kind of stuff is your conscious. So I can tell you from last night I was studying, these are conscious thoughts. I'm telling you that I'm cooking, conscious thoughts. So then that's like very simple and basic. Then right underneath that, you have the subconscious. And those are things that we could be aware of, but if we wanted to, or if we tried to be aware of. So they're basically like your memories that are stored. So I could say 2 years ago, I went to the cabins in Tennessee, in Gatlinburg, with my family for Thanksgiving. You know, that's something that is readily available in my memory, but it's not on the surface. It's like I can pull from that if I needed to, but not necessarily that it's on my mind constantly. And then you have the unconscious, and these are things that we are unaware of and cannot become aware of because we don't, they're like stuck deep down in like a repository of memory, and it's just like things that you can't and you aren't aware of. So the id, so we have the id, the ego, and the superego, which I also made a video about this some years back as well. So this will be an update. The id is part of your unconscious mind, and it has two instincts. It has the eros and it has the thanatos. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. So your id is all about instant gratification, the pleasure principle. It's what we're born with. It's why babies cry and they have to have what they want when they want it, because their id is in full effect. And you know, it's all about instant gratification. So the eros is, which, and again, the id has two instincts, and the eros is life instinct or survival. So it has to do with your basic needs like breathing, eating, sex, sleeping, that kind of stuff. And it talks about libido and all that kind of stuff. So it's your life instinct. The thanatos is your death instinct, where it's more violent and aggressive, and it can lead to self-destruction. And so our eros is stronger than our thanatos because we look to survive rather than self-destruct. Most of us look for survival rather than self-destruction. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the ego and the superego, because we know that the id, again, is about pleasure principle, and it's all about me, 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 me. And then you have the super ego, which is about morality, and all things have to be perfect. And, it's about just doing the right thing and saying the right thing and being the right thing and having a positive perception and that kind of thing. And then you have the ego, which is the reality of it's constant of what's going on right now. So you have your id, which is instant gratification. You have your ego, which is the reality principle. And then you have your super ego, which is the morality. Oh, sorry, getting the message here, which is the reality principle. So I always like to use the little angel on one shoulder, devil on the other shoulder. And your id is like the little devil on your shoulder because it's all about instant gratification and pleasure principle and what feels good right now. And I should do this now because I like it. I love it. It feels good. Then you have the angel on this shoulder, and your angel is the super ego, which is all about, no, you have to be perfect and you have to do what society says you should do and everything has to be great. And then yourself here is the reality principle, which is the ego. So it's, what's going on in reality. So you have the angel, the devil here, the angel here, and they're fighting back and forth. So the id here, the super ego here, and then the ego is here, who is doing the mediation. So your actual self, reality principle, is the ego that mediates the id and the super ego. So again, for those of you who are visual learners, you need to see that. And there are charts out there that show you kind of that same thing. So make sure if you are a visual learner, you see that. So like I said, just one more time for repetition's sake, because we know we learn by repetition. You have the id here on one shoulder. That's instant gratification, and we have to find ways to remember things. So id starts with I, instant gratification starts with I, and id is all about me. I. And it's very driven by instincts. Then you have your super ego here, which is the angel. It's all about morality. So when you think of super ego, think of like Superman. Like Superman wants everything to be right in the world and everything to be perfect. So you have your super ego here that's all about morality, doing things right, being socially correct and that kind of thing. And then in between the angel and the devil, or the devil is over here and the angel's here. Y'all get it. I'm just trying to think for people with visuals. But anyway, so you have your devil and your angel, and then you have your ego here mediating, telling these two, hey, knock it off, get it together. So it's room for inner conflict between all three of those. So let's see what else. The conscious is thoughts that are in the now. The subconscious, like I said, are memories that are stored and knowledge that can be retrieved. And then the unconscious is primitive wishes, earlier wishes, impulses that are kept at bay and mediated by the subconscious or the ego. And again, your unconscious is all of those instincts and fears and things that are unacceptable, like sexual desires and that kind of thing, that are just unconscious. Let's see. So then we also get into the defense mechanisms, which I'm going to start again looking over those tonight, just because I'm pretty familiar with the defense mechanisms, but I know some other people may not be, so I'll probably make a video on those again. But we start to repress things, we lock things away into our unconscious mind, because some things might be too painful for us to remember. So that's what repression is. Repression is a defense mechanism where, you know, if memories or things are too painful for you to remember or to deal with, if you've had any kind of trauma or anything that has happened to you, sometimes in order to deal with that internal anxiety, we repress things as a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism so that we don't have to deal with them. And then some people are also in denial, which is another defense mechanism where we just act like things don't happen or haven't happened so that we don't have to directly deal with it. But anyway, the goal of psychoanalysis is to make the unconscious conscious. So when you think about Freud and the psychoanalytic theory, it's all about making the unconscious conscious. So bringing up, let me turn off the stove. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So it's all about bringing up those things from your past that are in your unconscious that you don't actively think about. And I know y'all are tired of seeing me playing with these braids. I'm almost done with them, y'all. It's been about a month. I'm taking them out soon to get my hair done for my birthday. But anyway, so your psychoanalytic theory is all about bringing up those unconscious traumas and things that happen in your past and bringing them to the conscious so that you can resolve them and not have to use defense mechanisms to repress them. So anytime you hear Freud, psychoanalytic theory, we know psychoanalysis is analyzing the psyche, is going back into your mind and back into your personality and back into your childhood and making the unconscious conscious to resolve and deal with whatever happened at that point. Let's see, anything else about the ego? Again, the ego is about reality principle. Your ego develops from the id during your infancy. The goal of the ego is to satisfy the demands of the id in a safe and socially acceptable way. So like I said, the id is all about self. It's all about the pleasure principle. So the ego is the reality principle, and it's about, again, satisfying the demands of the id. The ego is about satisfying the demands of the id in a socially and safe, acceptable way, because we don't want to be about instant gratification. We don't want to be about the pleasure principle. Some of us do, but ideally we want to be about the reality principle, and that's what the ego is. And the ego operates in the conscious and the unconscious mind. Then we have the superego that develops during early childhood, around ages 3 to 5. When a child identifies with their same-sex parent and is responsible for ensuring moral standards. So again, superego is all about morality and doing things the right way. And Superman wants everything to be perfect and he's going to save the day. That's what you want to think about when you think about the superego, is morality, the morality principle. And the morality principle and the superego motivates us to operate and behave in a socially acceptable way. So, let's see. Hang on. Y'all. Okay, sorry. I'm cooking. So we're all working professionals, right? Well, most of us for the most part. So I'm trying to multitask here. I'm trying to cook. I'm making some chicken Alfredo and Texas toast, and I'm trying to put this out for you all and trying to find time to do some stuff for me before I start studying again tonight. But anyway, let's see, the ego deploys defense mechanisms to prevent it from becoming overwhelmed with anxiety. So the ego, which is our reality principle, which is where we are in the here and now, uses defense mechanisms if anxiety is present. So that's just a little wrap up for tonight. I'm going to try to do this. I won't say every night because I know that's not realistic, but I'm going to try to do this often. As I'm studying, I'm going to try to come and make videos and do some refreshers for y'all so that we can study and do this together. And hopefully it's helpful. And if it is helpful, please like the video, share the video with your colleagues, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment in the comment sections. So I'm going to try to be very involved, like I said, while I'm studying for this exam and being helpful along the way. I'm posting daily tips, exam prep tips for the next couple weeks. And hopefully this all is going to be helpful for y'all. So if you have any comments or questions, let me know. Don't forget to, if you want to enter for the free 75-day access to the pre-recorded tutoring series, make sure to post your holiday or winter picture and a topic that you want to see on Sunday Social. And don't forget to watch out for the last specials for the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series, because the price will be going up in January. The price is currently still $95 due to COVID for the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series. And check out the testimonial videos from colleagues all across the country, literally, who have passed their exam using day-to-day social work. So until next time, I will see y'all later.